going on, Dolphins? It is your boy Dillon, and so today I'm making this video because there was an interview with Grier. There was also an interview with Flores. So I'm gonna have those for you at the end of this, my portion of this video, so that obviously you guys can see that for yourself, hear what they had to say, and so on and so forth to get the full context. But I am gonna kind of go over some things, some key points, and some things that I took away. So to start with, and a lot of this stuff, they kind of echoed each other on, so a lot of it's crossover, so I'm gonna try and keep it all as concise as possible. So first, one of the things that was talked about, Flores was talking about his staff and the things that he wanted from the people that he brought in, and so on and so forth. And of course he related it to the team too, as far as like characteristics and things that he's looking for from the people that work for him, basically. So, he wants people that are smart, mentally tough, who communicate well, who give, the full effort, team effort, and who put the team first. So, and he's talked about that a lot before. Obviously, that's all good stuff. And so now we're just going to have to wait to see if that can be put into practice and how well that translates and permeates the organization and translates onto the field. So he also talked a lot about camaraderie, communication, chemistry, and culture, and how that's all super important, which it is. All of that stuff is super important. It is super important for your guys to, hang out together, to build that rapport, to build that bond, to build that chemistry. You got to have proper communication across the board, because again, it takes 11 guys on the field at a time to be able to execute properly, and the guys on the field need to be able to trust each other, that they're going to be in their right spots, all of that stuff. And the overall culture of the organization is super important, so that's why, like, again, man, when, fucking stupid ass Omar Kelly would be like, oh, I don't buy into this culture shit, back with Adam Gase's regime. And he's probably on his high horse now, whatever, because see, he's like, I haven't seen, I wouldn't know, I'm not putting words in his mouth, but I would guess that he would say that, see, Adam Gase's culture didn't work out, blah, 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 I was right, it doesn't matter. I don't know, maybe he would, maybe he wouldn't, but it does matter. And, but it's just funny, right? Because again, like, that just goes to the standards, the different standards set on different people, and it's not consistent, right? So, when you talk about like Bill Belichick and so far how they've been talking about Flores, like with culture, yeah, great, you got to establish your culture, and culture is super important, and blah, blah, blah. But when it was with Adam Gase and other people too, there have been other coaches where they're, people have been like, oh, culture doesn't matter, or blah, 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 whatever. Just be consistent, right? And if it matters for one, then it matters for the other. Like, stop with these double standards and stuff. Like, it's ridiculous, right? So it is very important, and so far I do like the things that he is saying, and hopefully that will translate, right? So again, though, it is still very early, so it does that type of environment and that type of culture, the winning culture, the smart, mentally tough, good communication skills, right? Like, all of those things, they have to permeate through the organization, which we haven't seen for one reason or another. When it comes to like Joe Philbin's era, I mean, it was just non-stop dysfunction. Joe Philbin was a terrible head coach for, several different reasons, and, nobody was on the same page, so on and so forth. I mean, I'm not an insider. I don't have, the word from, anybody officially, of course, but from all intents and purposes, and from all reports that I've seen, and from all public declarations by people who are in the organization and whatever, things were well within the organization with this past regime, with, Grier, Tannenbaum, and Gase. Obviously, something didn't work out well enough, and it didn't persist, right? But we'll have to see if this organization will be able, or this regime can do that. But again, I don't think that the last regime was given the proper amount of time. So that's another thing that I'll be looking at, is whether or not this regime will be given the proper amount of time, even if things don't go well, you know, off the bat or in the beginning of their term. So to touch on some other things, he talked about how he feels like there are good pieces across the board on offense, defense, special teams. There's a lot of good players, a lot of, you know, good core young nucleus with, you know, good veteran leadership, so on and so forth. He said that he's loving the opportunity and embracing the experience of being able to, you know, be a head coach. He also said that obviously they're working to improve on everything. You know, he doesn't really care about what happened last season, of course. I mean, a lot of this stuff is really generic, right? So, but, you know, he talked about wanting to improve everywhere. You know, they want to get better every day. The same old cliche coach stuff, you know, and that, you know, the players all say that, be better every day, and they should be, right? I mean, I'm not discounting that. That obviously is a good thing. Like, I do that in my own life. I try and be better every day, you know, better today than I was yesterday, better tomorrow than I was today, so on and so forth. I like to continue to grow and evolve and become better always, and I think that's good. But it is generic, right? It is generic. Everybody says that, so on and so forth. He's focused on 2019. Again, he doesn't care about what happened last year. More specifically, he's focused on this week. You know, he's taking it 1 year at a time, 1 week at a time, 1 day at a time, right? So you know, obviously depending on the context, he's, you know, as immediate as he needs to be. But he does feel really good about the staff. He feels really good about the team overall. They're still currently evaluating the roster right now. You know, they're getting to know their guys, learning their strengths and their weaknesses, where they're going to fit in, who they're going to keep, who they're going to get rid of. And then obviously, you know, a lot of that information is going to play into how they decide to go into the draft. And obviously they are focusing on a lot of the stuff that goes on with that. So right now, this week it is the combine, so they have been doing a lot with that. He also mentioned that it is a dream come true for him to be a head coach, but it is not the finish line. It is just the starting line. And of course, you know, I mean, that's more, you know, more of the cliche shit, right? It's good. I mean, like, that's the stuff you want to hear. But again, you know, part of my argument, because people keep seeming to think that I don't like Brian Flores, or I don't like these coaches or the people that they brought in. That is not at all the case. I like them. They have a lot of experience, a lot of knowledge, a lot of wisdom, a very, you know, high winning pedigree from college, from high school, in fact, cumulatively between all these coaches from high school all the way through the NFL. So I like them. But again, I don't think that they handled the previous regime properly. And with this one, as much as, you know, they can say all of the good things that we want to hear, but none of that matters. As Dolphins fans should know, none of that matters until we see the results, right? The problem oftentimes with fans and the media is that when the results come out, right, when we see, you know, what happens in, like, let's say a year from now, right, one way or the other, people go to extremes. So again, with Adam Gase, I keep bringing him up because it is the most recent example, and because I think that it was done improperly. But in the first season, everybody was like so up Gase's ass because he did miraculous things, got us 10-6, and we made the playoffs, right? So everybody went super extreme and was like, oh, he's the next greatest thing, blah, blah, blah. And I said that too, but not because he went 10-6 in the first season. That was a data point for sure, but that wasn't the only reason. Gase inspired me, and amongst other things. Anyway, so point is though, is everybody went super extreme, and the next thing you know, all these expectations, and then we go into year 2, and then year 3, blah, 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 and then, you know, it's just, literally, there's no middle ground with most people, right? They just went from super high after year 1 to just super low after year 2. And then after year 3, he gets fired and doesn't have the opportunity to even finish out his contract because we are still paying Gase for this year. Gase is still receiving money from the Dolphins organization because of the contract he signed, right? So we're paying 2 head coaches. So the same thing could happen if we get rid of Tannehill and bring in, like, let's say Nick Foles or another veteran quarterback. Then you'll be paying for 2 quarterbacks when one of them's not even on the roster. Anyway, and then so we shouldn't get so far ahead of ourselves that we're anointing this guy as the new Don Shula or Bill Belichick. We should stop saying that he's a perfect fit here without him having actually done anything. We don't know. We don't know, right? Because we don't know what's going to happen in the future. There's a lot of things that are unforeseen. You know, he has to prove it. It's his first year. There's a lot of factors that go into it. You know, and I mean, come on, like, just temper the emotions a little bit, right, guys? So we just need to calm down. Let's not put too much, because then what will end up happening is just like what happened with Gase, is if you get too extreme, then you're gonna have all of these super high unrealistic expectations, and then when those expectations don't get met, then this deep-seated disappointment sets in. And when that happens, then people get all emotional, they get all sad and depressed and gloomy and blah blah blah, pissed off, whatever it is, right? And then the pendulum swings and they go the opposite way, and now it's all despair and misery and hate and blah blah blah, right? And then if that happens, then it's very possible, with the history of this team and this franchise in recent years, particularly with Stephen Ross as owner and with the way that this fan base goes, Brian Flores won't make it through his 5 years if things don't go exactly perfect like everybody wants it to go within these first, 2 or 3 years. So we need to temper that. Anyway, he did also talk about how, there have been no final decisions yet made on any players, to include Ryan Tannehill. They're still doing the evaluation process, so we have to wait and see on that. He did talk a little bit about quarterback traits that he likes and that are really important to him. And some of the ones that he mentioned were mobility, accuracy, leadership, work ethic. He talked about intelligence and so on and so forth. And guess what? Ryan Tannehill has all that. He has all that. I know there's a lot of people that don't think so. I know there's a lot of people that are haters and so on and so forth. But the facts bear that out. We don't need to get into that discussion right now, but the facts do bear that out, and Ryan Tannehill has all that. So when you take all factors into account, it would make the most sense for them to keep Tannehill at the very least until his contract runs out, so that way you don't have to pay him when he's not on your roster, so that way you have some veteran leadership in that room, that the young guys can learn from, so that way you have a guy that is going to be reliable for you when he's on the field. You don't have any dead money, so on and so forth, whatever, right? But yes, absolutely, draft a quarterback. And then that way, also, you don't have to chase a quarterback. We only have 7 picks in this draft, so we wouldn't have to give away draft capital in this year or the next year or whenever to move up to go chase a guy that we don't know anything about, that's not proven, so on and so forth. If anything, we could trade down, get more draft capital. But again, it's not where you pick, it's how you pick. And we need there are more important things than quarterback. All the media and everything's like, oh, the most important thing that they need is quarterback. That is so far from the truth. It is ridiculous. But so many people believe it. That is also ridiculous. And so, again, for me, we need 2 interior offensive linemen. We need 2 defensive linemen, at least 1 interior, 1 edge rusher. We need at least 1 cornerback. We should definitely take a quarterback at some point in this draft. I would say mid-round, so like maybe 3 or 4, possibly 5, depending on how the board lines up and so on and so forth. And then maybe another cornerback or a linebacker or something like that, right? And then, for undrafted free agents, then you can pick up guys like safeties, wide receivers, running backs. A tight end is actually a position that I would get either, mid to late draft, or maybe, as an undrafted free agent as well, right? And then the final thing, this actually came from Chris Grier. He talked about how tanking is not a thing. We always want to win. We're super competitive. Stephen Ross, he's super competitive. But then he also talked about, and this made a lot of sense for sure, you know, if you're going to bring in guys that are, you know, mentally tough and, you know, are competitive and love football and blah, 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 all that stuff. Well, it's kind of contradictory and hypocritical to, you know, try and bring those guys in who are going to want to fight every day, every down, every play, so on and so forth, you know, and who are competitive and are going to go out there and try and, you know, win, and then tell them, hey, you know, we're gonna tank this year so that way we can get a high draft pick in the next year's draft. Like, it doesn't make any sense, right? It doesn't make any sense at all. Plus, like I said, I would never support that. That is just a super defeatist attitude. And again, it doesn't matter where you pick. It matters how you pick. Anyway, so that's all I got. That's my, you know, evaluation and like the key points and stuff that I took from all of that. So like I said, I mean, overall, I am actually pleased, very pleased with this coaching staff to this point. You know, oh, and the other thing that I almost forgot, again, one of my big points is that not that I don't like Reggie McKenzie or Marvin Allen. It's not that I don't like them, but again, the defense of these moves, the defense of what Stephen Ross is doing and the direction this team is going, you cannot use the defense that he has streamlined his front office and reduce the amount of, you know, input and voices in there. You can't say that anymore, right? The media was praising him endlessly because when they got rid of Gase and, you know, got rid of Tannenbaum or whatever, that it was just going to be Brian Flores, Chris Grier, and Stephen Ross, and that was going to be, you know, all of the input, all of the voices in the room, point blank, bottom line, period. And then they started adding guys. So again, I'm not saying it won't be successful. We have to wait and see. But you just really can't say that he's streamlined the front office and, you know, reduced the amount of voices and input in the room. You can't say that anymore because it's just factually incorrect. And again, as I pointed out, in this particular case, in this regime, there's actually more people, more voices in that powwow, in that room, than there were with the last regime. So it's just not an excuse or a reason or a defense, right? It can't be used. It can't be said. And that's my point. So anyway, that's all I got for you guys. I'm going to send you off to these interviews so you can check them out for yourself. I hope you guys enjoy my videos. If you do, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you hit the bell if you want to get the alerts. Leave your questions, comments, and concerns down in the comment section. And as always, make sure you follow me on Twitter at Dillon Tartaro. And with that, I am out. I'll see y'all soon. Fins up.
Yeah, I think, you know, you always look for players that have had some sort of adversity in their lives that, you know, and it could be the smallest thing, but it also shows a little bit of their character and how they've worked to overcome things. So it's little backstories on players that, at the combine here that you like hearing. But, you know, like I said, that's some of the traits that we really liked about Brian, and that he's just earned everything from, you know, an intern running to get coffee every day to, you know, being part of one of the greatest defensive performances in the Super Bowl, and now he's a head coach of our organization.
Chris, what are some of the examples of the life experiences you're looking for? Is it hardship growing up, hardship in school, coming back from injury, things like that?
Yeah, because this is a hard league, you know, and there's been examples of players in the past that have never had any adversity. They've been whether it's the 5-star player from a, you know, white picket fence in ideal life, and then they come to the league and they struggle and they don't know how to deal with that. And so, not saying that every player should have that, but it helps paint a picture, and it gives you an idea of whether the guy has that makeup to overcome the challenges he's going to deal with in the NFL.
Chris, there's been a lot of talk that this roster is going to have a pretty big makeover this offseason, and essentially if you're a veteran on a big contract, you might be in trouble. What do you see the roster in 2019 looking like? Is it going to be young guys? Is it going to be cheap guys? What do you see?
I would say everything is, you know, to take Brian's words, on the table, but just we've made some decisions, but we still have a couple weeks to go. But I wouldn't say that anybody is definitely going to be cut or not going to be here, et cetera. It's the coaching staff's only been in the building for 2.5 weeks, and they've grinded and worked hard to learn the roster. We've had great meetings with the coaches about future plans, and we're very close, but we're still having a lot of discussions that still need to be had over the next couple of weeks.
There's a lot of tension, obviously, it's going to be at quarterback. When do you anticipate making that decision on Brian, and then what's next for you guys?
Yeah, no, I think we've had a really good talk last weekend, just trying to figure that out, and the coaches have done a great job. Coach O'Shea has been really good, and Coach Caldwell, and talk with Brian and I. So we're getting there, and once we make a decision, organizational-wise, we'll move forward.
Chris, where do things stand with Xavier Howard, and are you confident that he'll be on your roster in 2019?
Yes, I'm very confident he'll be there. Xavier's been in the building. He's coming back from a little bit of his just working out, starting to get in shape again after his Pro Bowl, which we don't really call that, working out, but he's doing good. We've just been hanging out around him. He wants to be a Miami Dolphin, and we want him to be a Dolphin.
Have you had any discussions with Jawan James camp?
No, not yet. Jawan just got married last weekend, as some of you guys know. So we'll probably engage him some point here after the combine, because at this point he's getting married. He had so much going on in his mind that we said we'd meet after the combine.
How would you describe the level of interest in possibly having him return?
Oh, we drafted him here, and he's a good young player. We'd like to have him here, and we'll see what the market and what he's looking for as well.
How important would he be as an anchor for the offensive line, especially at that right tackle position?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's one less box you'd have to check going out. But at the end of the day, the organization will do what's best for the Dolphins, and he's a good guy, and he's worked hard. He's been here, and he's a good teammate, and so we'll see what happens.
All right, we'll take a couple more.
There's been talk that you guys might not want to win this season. Can you tell me on the record? I mean, what is the intention? Is it to make the playoffs?
I think everyone kind of took Steve's words, the first press conference, not to say with the first one, out of context, because you've been around Steve. He is a volatile, very competitive person. So we're not trying to lose games. We're going to do what's best. We're going to build, and like we talked about, building the right, going through the process to do what's best for the Dolphins. But no, we're not trying to tank or lose every game. But we're going to build it right and see how it plays out.
Does it irritate you to hear that kind of talk out there, or do you just kind of let it go?
You have to let it go, because I don't see how you could ask 53 guys to put their bodies on the line to lose games, and it's just.
Well, the idea is.
No, I know it, but that's
top. Yeah.
right for the top.
Yeah.
But it's just, Steve kind of clarified that, with this when we introduced Brian, and it was, and you've talked about the type of players we want: tough guys, competitive guys. So it's kind of hard to say you want that and then say, hey, rein it back for a year and just go lay down. So So we'll see how it goes.
What impressed you the most about Brian Flores in the interview process?
Just the person. Take away the football part, which he's a really good football coach, and but it's the person. And like I said, our paths never crossed in terms of being at New England at the time, because I was gone and he came in after, and it was just a lot of the coaches that I knew there and personnel staff all kept saying, hey, you gotta meet Brian and really talk to him football wise. And we knew each other a little bit just in the scouting world, but he hadn't been in there in 10 plus years. So, but he came in, was very organized, detailed, personable. He knew facts about everyone there, was on the interview process with us. So it's just this level of detail and getting to know, and then as you've been around him, just you can feel his presence, his leadership, how people respond to him, and how he treats people, and so I thought it was just exactly what we needed.
He obviously comes from a very successful organization, and that's the only one he's been in. So do you want him to try to replicate some things that went well in New England? How much do you want to embrace what they did in New England? Yeah.
I think I want Brian to be Brian. So whatever he feels works, we're all on board for that, and it's bringing in good people from everywhere, like Jim Caldwell, bringing some stuff from India, for personnel side, having Marvin Allen and Reggie McKenzie come in, new ideas. So for me, it's and for Brian as well, it's just hiring good people that are really good at their jobs, and just taking those ideas, and whatever works best for the organization we'll do.
Chris, last one. Hal,
Chris, I know it's early in the week, but what can you say about this quarterback class? And a lot of people are looking toward next year as a better one, but what do you think about this one?
It's to say when people start ranking classes now before anyone sat down and talked to guys, it's kind of hard to do because everyone knows the mental part of the game, especially for the quarterbacks, play a huge part. So until anyone sits down and talks to those players and gets to see how they learn football, how they process information, how they're going to be in the locker room, what kind of leadership they bring, you can't really say, because that's the intangibles is what makes people great. We've seen a lot of guys come through the league that have big arms and can make every throw, but if they're not wired right upstairs, they're not going to make it. So I don't make any judgments on any classes until we really sit down and get to know the players first.
Is that much more important?
It is.
That position?
It is. It's the way defenses are. You have to process things quicker, make quick decisions, know where to go with the ball, and so it is. It's a huge part, and and I think that's the real reason you see a lot of talented players that don't quite live up to maybe their draft billing in terms of the quarterback position.
All right, last one here.
What's your interest in bringing Cameron Wake back?
Right now with the roster and Brian, we're going through everything. He's been a Dolphin. He's been a tremendous player for us, and so we'll see where that is right now, and we'll have conversations with him and his agent probably soon.
All right, Cameron, last one, then we're going.
Chris, if I could follow up to Hal's question about what is your specific QB philosophy as far as evaluating them, and how closely do you follow Bill Parcells' mentality and his strict guidelines per se?
It's the Bill model in terms of like a 2.5 year or 3 year starter. That does have a lot because you want guys that have had the game reps and game experience, but the way the game is now, and these kids, a lot of these guys are like one and done, where they've sat their freshman year and then something happened, they're only getting like a 1 year starter or something. So I think you have to take it on a case-by-case basis with each player. But the big thing is that right now is the intelligence and the leadership stuff, and I think that's really important because obviously all these guys can throw, and people want to say guys have better big arms and whatever, but the guys that quote-unquote don't have great arms become good players in this league. So, and what separates them is the mental makeup.
Well, it feels good in Aqua. I'm excited to be in Miami. We've had a really good start. Obviously, we're behind a little bit with me coming in after the game, and but we've got a lot of really great people in the organization. I feel like we put together a pretty good coaching staff, and those are guys I've kind of leaned on along with Chris and our entire organization. We got a lot of great people there, so it's been a very, I wouldn't call it smooth transition, but it's been a good transition.
Yeah, can you talk about how the guys from New England have, what they've done to help you so far, how having that comfort level helps you?
Well, I think just kind of putting together the staff, I wanted people that are smart, that are mentally tough. I wanted that our staff to kind of reflect what I'd like to see from our team. So smart, tough guys who communicate well. I mean, we ask players to communicate, offense, defense, special teams. So our staff has to be able to communicate that way also. And that was big. That was one of my main objectives as far as putting the staff together. So I'm excited with the group we have, and I've kind of, it's a great group from Jim Caldwell to Danny Crossman to Chad to Josh Grizzard. I mean, all the way across the board. We got a lot of great people, and I've leaned on those guys. I mean, look, this is a team effort all the way across the board. You'll hear me say that on a week-to-week basis. When we're in season, I'm going to say that in the off-season as well. Right now, that team is our coaching staff, our personnel staff, and really the entire organization.
Coach, you mentioned you guys are a little bit behind, but how much does it help to have some familiar faces on your staff that you're comfortable working with?
I think that's very important. I think camaraderie and being able to communicate and be aligned is very important. I think that's something Chris, myself, our coaching staff, our personnel staff. I think we're aligned as far as the type of players we're looking for, the type of team we want to build, and this is obviously this week is a big part of that process.
I'm sure culture is very important with that and taking over a new team. What have you learned from New England to help establish your own type of culture in Miami?
Yeah, like you said, culture is very important. I would say, a lot of the things that, I learned in New England were about putting the team first. I think that was another part of, something that was important to me is putting together a staff and people around me who don't have egos, who work well together. I think that's going to be a big part of what we do in Miami.
Coach, you defended against this team for years. Whenever you look at them from the other side, who do you see on the offense that you see as
I think, and yeah, I definitely spent a lot of time coaching against this group. But there's definitely a good group of players here, really across the board. Offense, defense, and the kicking game. A lot of this process has been about evaluating our current roster, and that's where it really starts. So you can come to the draft and free agency and all, that's all well and good, but if you don't know what you have, it makes no difference. So we feel good about a lot of our players, and we're going to try to add more pieces to the puzzle and try to put the best product out there possible.
From winning a Super Bowl to taking over a new head coaching job, what has this last month been like for you?
It's been a blur, but it's been fun. It's unfortunate. You can complain about not sleeping, but the opportunity to coach at this great organization and work with the people I'm working with, I wouldn't trade it for anything. So it's been fun. There's always something to do. There's always someone to meet with. There's always a meeting to go to. It feels like there's not enough time, but I'm trying to crunch time right now, and because everything's important. Go ahead, Al.
What, if anything, has surprised you in these past couple of weeks?
I can't say I've been surprised by anything. I think to me, I'm kind of ready for anything, and ready for any and everything. I think we've got some good young talent, some veteran players who display leadership and can help build some of the core values that we want in this team. I think this is a good group, and I'm excited to move forward with them.
When you look at the personnel and defense, the issues that they had last year, what is one thing that needs to get better?
I think we're trying to get better in every area. Pass defense, run defense, kickoff coverage, punting, like net, everything. So I wouldn't say there's one thing, because everything's important. I don't know what's the difference. I always tell people, the difference between getting 4th and 1 and not getting 4th and 1. If you focus on one thing, then that might not be the difference. So everything's important.
I guess in particular, stopping the run last year was a big issue for this team. What did you see went wrong, and what needs to get better?
Again, I wasn't here last year. I can't speak to what happened last year. My focus is on what we're trying to accomplish next year, and not even next year, this week. Again, I've always tried to stay present in the moment, not really worry about the past and what's going on there, although I can't sit here and say you don't learn from things that have happened in the past. But last year was last year. We're focused on 2019. And really, that process started, when I got off the plane and touched down in Fort Lauderdale, and that's where we're moving forward.
What are some factors that went into the decision? Obviously, the collaborative planning effort, but to have Pat call the defense on game day.
Well, again, I would say, Pat is someone I have a lot of respect for. I think he's an incredible coach. I think he's the smartest guy in the room, quite honestly. Yale grad. He likes to tell people that. Great friend of mine. We spend a lot of time together. I have a lot of I feel good about him as a coach, him as a teacher, but I feel great about our entire coaching staff, from Chad to Pat to Danny to Jim to Pat Flaherty. I mean, I think we put together a pretty strong staff. Eric Studesville, Tony Oden, but Pat's I'm very confident in his ability as a play caller, but it's a collaborative effort. It really is. Having done it for a year, I know that it's not just one person, making the calls. Is, you're getting thoughts, comments, help. Really, that's the word from various people, whether it's the corners coach or the safeties coach or the head coach. So it's definitely a collaborative effort. This is a team game all the way through and through, from a coaching staff to the personnel staff to the and that kind of filters down into the team, on Sundays or Mondays or Thursdays, and I mean that's always kind of the hallmark of how I want our team to be built, and I want that displayed on a day-to-day basis.
Right, with the new staff in here, would it be ideal with a new staff to have a rookie quarterback that you can mold?
I think we got to be ready for, any and all situations, and I think, that's if that's the situation, then that's the situation. I think, I think we're always developing players. So we're developing rookies, we're developing second-year players, we're developing seventh-year players. I think, we're in a business where everyone's got to, we're all looking to improve. As players, that's coaches, that's personnel people, that's equipment managers, that's, the nutritionists. We're all trying to improve. So I know you say develop a rookie. I'm trying to develop everyone. So, I mean, hopefully that answers your question.
Brian, with you and Pat running the defense and Chad O'Shea as the offensive coordinator, do you envision trying to be like the Patriots on both sides of the football, doing what you guys did there?
Right now, my vision is really focused on this week and the players at this draft and trying to get to know these guys and again, like this part of the process is so vital, so important. As far as getting to know these players, their strengths, their weaknesses, how they fit with our team. And then, we'll get to that, the play call and who's doing this, who's that, when we get to that. Obviously, that's something we're working towards also. But right now, I don't, the focus right now is on these players at the combine.
Ryan, on a personal level, what's it like for you to be here as a head coach?
It's incredible. It's a dream come true. But at the same time, and I've had this conversation with many people, I'm never going to feel like I arrived. This isn't the finish line. This is the start line for me. I'm excited to be in this position, but at the same time, I know that there's a lot of work to be done in all areas. We're always all trying to improve on a day-to-day basis. We want to build a tough team, a smart team, a team that can play under pressure. Our players need to know that. The entire organization needs to know that. We're going to work towards that every day. Try to bring in as many great people in the organization as we can. So if you embody the qualities that we're looking for, if you're mentally tough, if you're smart, you're very intelligent, if you communicate well, if you put the team first, if football is very important to you, you probably got a shot of being a part of what we're trying to accomplish, and that's across the board. That's not just coaching. That's from the top down. And Chris and I are aligned with that in mind. Those are the type of people we want in the building.
Brian, with your evaluations with Chad and Jim, where does Brian Tannehill fit in the mix for you guys moving forward?
Right now everything's kind of in process. I've been there 3.5 weeks. So again, we've gone through the evaluations of the roster. Everything's in process. We still have time. Obviously we've made some evaluations, but we've still got time to make those decisions. Having played against, Ryan, he's had some success against me personally. I think of the last game we played. So he's done a really good job. But those things are in process right now. We haven't made any final decisions. Everything's on the table. Chris and I are aligned on that. And again, we've talked about the types of guys we want in our program, and it's that part of it as far as the evaluations and getting everybody on the same page has been good.
What would it mean for you to have that Super Bowl and to go out in your Patriots performance, in that stage and that performance, and what it all looked like?
It was great, but again, it happened quickly. It's almost like it didn't happen, quite honestly, with all that's gone on. I watched it briefly. I thought the guys played well, and again, it's a testament to the players. The credit goes to them. They practiced hard, they played hard, they played with the discipline, the toughness, and the team-first attitude that I've talked about already this morning, and they reaped the benefits of that. And but that happened, and it was over. I was on a plane, and I've been in Florida since, and I'm enjoying my time right now in Teal. That's.
Obviously, you got the familiar faces on the staff. Is it important to bring in players that you've coached before as well?
I think it's important to bring in players who are going to play our style and do the things that well, first I would say, bring the culture and bring the leadership and the toughness and the intelligence that we're looking for. So I don't care where that player comes from. And hopefully we'll find a good number of them this week. So it's all part of the process. And again, this week is so important because you get to know these guys, and we're not going to be able to pick every guy we like. I understand that, but we get to know them, and maybe down the line, this conversation that was had here just kind of helps our process 2-3 years from now. Oh, we talked to so and so at the combine. That was a good interview. He's available. You know what I mean? Things like that. This is all important. Not just for right now, but in the future.
Have you been able to get in contact with Brandon and Danny at all since you've gone to Miami? Holden and Amendola?
I have not. But again, two guys who were incredible in New England. Guys I have a lot of respect for, who embody a lot of the principles, core values that I believe are essential to winning. Hey, Cameron. I've watched a good number of them. They are it's a good group. Again, it's the evaluation's still up. It's still ongoing. We'll meet a group of them this week, and that's a big part of the evaluation. Again, we'll kind of we won't be able to pick them all. We know that. But we'll go through the evaluation process. We've kind of right now. We've kind of talked about the types of players we're looking for, and you guys have already heard it. We want them smart. We want them tough, mentally and physically. We want them fundamentally sound. We want them to be able to play under pressure. We want to be able to coach them hard, because this is going to be a demand. This is a demanding league, so we got to be demanding on our players. They need to understand that. I mean, you could look at the stats. You could probably figure that out on your own. But look, each quarterback's a little bit different. They have their own strengths, weaknesses. Guys who are mobile, that's a strength. Guys who have great accuracy, that's definitely a strength. Those are kind of qualities that it's just standard things you're looking for. Guys who are accurate, guys with leadership, command of the offense. I think that's definitely a quality you'd want in your quarterback. Mobility's great, but every player's a little bit different. I think he had a phenomenal year this year. I think he's a great athlete. I think he's a very good player.
Brian, you just said earlier a lot of quotes that we've heard many times at Bill Belichick press conferences. Last year, of course, talking about that team. Is that intentional, or does he just sort of rub off on you and any of the coaches on that?
I think last year was last year. If we focus on, maybe it does rub off. Maybe it's something I feel like there's some good in that. If we focus on last year, then we're not focused on this year. And if I would hate to take away from this year's team, focus on whatever happened a year ago. And if I'm copying Bill, then I guess I'm copying Bill in that situation. No.
At all, or not? Has anyone between Bill or Josh McDaniels or Bill O'Brien or anyone, many Patriots guys have gone on to become head coaches, has anyone given you good advice or helped you navigate through situations?
I've talked to a few different guys. They said it would be a blur. They said it'd be a whirlwind. It'd happen fast. You'd have a lot to do. You wouldn't have enough time. But the big thing they've all said is to be yourself, to stick to your core values, to stick to the things that are important to you, which I've tried to do to get good people around you. I've tried to do that, and to always be true to who you are. So.
A couple more questions, guys.
I'm glad you asked that. I just wanted to, John Wooten, the Fritz Potter Alliance was incredible to me during my process as far as the head coaching search and that whole situation. So he's been a dear friend, a mentor. He's stepping down this year, so I just wanted to kind of, publicly thank him and thank the Fritz Pollard Alliance for all they do for minority coaches. He was great to me, and I think that that's something that's near and dear to my heart. I think there's a lot of very capable coaches in this league, and whatever I can do to help those guys get an opportunity, I'm all for it.
Last question.
I'm excited to have Coach Caldwell. He's been a great resource. He's been someone, a sounding board, along with, some other guys on our staff, whether it's Danny to Pat Graham to Chad, but, Jim specifically, he's definitely been a sounding board and somebody, again, he's done it. So, hey, what'd you do, in this situation, when you were wherever you were. So it's something that was, important to me to have someone like that on staff. Again, if I'm going to tell my team not to have egos, it's got to start with me. So I don't have an ego from that standpoint, and he's been really great to work with.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
All right, guys, it looks like you've reached the end of my video. So I hope you guys enjoyed the interviews. I hope you guys enjoy my show. If you do, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you hit the bell if you want to get the alerts. Make sure you leave your questions, comments, and concerns down in the comments section. Also, follow me on Twitter at Dillon Tartaro. You can hit me up there, leave your questions there, or just hit me up, or check out my tweets, my retweets, so on and so forth. And so with that, guys, I am out. I will see y'all soon. Fins up.